When his wallet emptied, she walked away, but she didn't expect him to rise like this. The front door creaked open slowly as Michael stepped inside, his shoulders slumped, face pale, and hands trembling as he clutched a crumpled termination letter. The once lively aura of the house felt colder today. He took a deep breath and gently closed the door behind him, trying to prepare himself for what he had to say. The sound of the lock clicking echoed louder than expected. In the living room, Amara, his wife, was lounging on the sofa, scrolling through her phone. She glanced up casually, but her face changed as she noticed his expression. "What's that in your hand?" she asked sharply, already sensing bad news. Michael hesitated, his voice barely above a whisper. "I lost the job. They had to lay people off. I was one of them." Amara shot up from the sofa, her phone dropping onto the cushion. "What do you mean you lost the job? How are we supposed to live now, Michael? Rent, food, our daughter's school." Her voice rose with every word, piercing through the silence. "I'm not giving up," he said quickly. "It's just temporary. I'll find something soon. I promise." But Amara had already turned away, storming into the bedroom. Michael followed her, pleading, "Amara, please, let's talk." Inside the bedroom, she had pulled out a suitcase and was tossing clothes into it with furious energy. "I can't do this, Michael. I didn't sign up to suffer. If you can't provide, what exactly are you good for?" A small voice broke the rising tension. Their 5-year-old daughter, Zara, stood at the doorway holding her stuffed animal tightly, her eyes filled with confusion and fear. "Mommy, where are you going?" Amara didn't answer. Zara ran to her and wrapped her tiny arms around her waist. Tears poured down her cheeks as she cried, "Mommy, please don't go. I'll be good. I promise. Please don't leave us." Even Amara's hands paused for a second, but she quickly hardened again. She bent down, kissed Zara on the head, and whispered, "You'll be fine with Daddy. I need to think about my future." Within minutes, the suitcase was zipped. Amara stormed out of the house. Michael chased after her, barefoot and broken. "Amara, don't do this to our daughter. Don't walk away like this." But she didn't look back. As she stepped into the taxi, the clouds above darkened. Thunder rumbled, and rain began to fall, drenching Michael as he stood in the driveway, helpless. Zara was crying from the window, her small hands pressed against the glass. Michael sank to his knees in the pouring rain, his heart shattered, his fists clenched. Through the sobs, he muttered to himself. Months had passed since Amara walked out, leaving Michael to pick up the broken pieces of his life. The house was quieter now, but not lifeless. Michael had traded sorrow for sweat, working odd jobs by day and repairing old electronics at night. The man who once wore a suit and carried a briefcase now wore grease-stained shirts and calloused hands. He painted houses, washed cars, unloaded crates, anything to bring in enough to keep the lights on. Every night, Zara, his little girl, stayed awake waiting for him. As he walked in, exhausted and dirty, she ran to him with a towel. "Daddy, sit. I'll wipe your face," she'd say with a smile far too mature for her age. Her small hands wiped his sweat, her presence wiping his sorrow. She didn't complain about toys or trips. Her biggest joy was eating dinner beside her father. One night, while sorting old electronics from a junkyard, Michael found a broken solar lamp. He tinkered with it for days, combining it with leftover parts and his old tech knowledge. It sparked an idea, a low-cost solar-powered lantern for poor families with no electricity. He made a prototype from scrap. He called it Z-Light, His hands trembled when he lit it for the first time in their dim living room, the warm light reflecting in Zara's amazed eyes. He started small, selling 5, then 10. Soon, videos of the lamp's impact on low-income homes went viral online. NGOs reached out. Local news ran a segment on the single father inventor. Orders flooded in. He set up a small workshop with local youth. What started as survival became success. 6 months later, Michael stood on stage at a Community Innovation Awards ceremony. Clean-shaven, suited, confident, he looked like a man reborn. Zara, now wearing a white dress and beaming with pride, held his hand as cameras flashed. The crowd applauded his story. From rock bottom to community hero. Across the city, Amara sat in a tiny flat, alone and tired. Her second relationship had failed. She flipped through channels absent-mindedly until her fingers froze. On the TV screen, there he was, Michael, smiling, dignified, holding Zara's hand under bright lights. The announcer called him an inspiration to struggling families everywhere. Amara's eyes welled with tears, her lips quivered. She leaned closer to the screen, as if distance could be closed through glass. She whispered brokenly, "I was wrong." The camera cut back to Michael, who looked straight into the lens for a moment, as if he felt the gaze of someone watching. He didn't smile, but his eyes held quiet strength. Not of revenge, but resilience. In that moment, the man who was once left behind had risen not just from loss, but from ashes. Not to prove her wrong, but to prove to his daughter. Life had not been kind to Amara since the day she walked away. At first, she believed freedom meant happiness, a fresh start, a better life. But the world outside didn't care about broken promises or pretty faces. Her so-called friends faded quickly when the bills began stacking. Late rent notices slapped against her apartment door, like daily reminders of her mistake. Her savings drained faster than her pride, and one by one, her calls for help went unanswered. Amara now spent her mornings staring blankly at job websites. Dozens of applications sent, 0 replies. Every interview she landed ended the same: polite smiles, rejection emails, and a bus ride home with her resume clutched in hand like a worthless ticket. Her clothes no longer carried the sharpness they once did. Her eyes, once full of judgment, now held quiet desperation. One chilly afternoon, while scrolling through social media in a dim cafe, she froze. A video played, a local event celebrating innovators. And there he was, Michael. Standing tall, confident, successful. But what stopped her breath was not the man. It was the little girl beside him, Zara, their daughter, now radiant with joy, smiling wide as she hugged her father on stage. Tears filled Amara's eyes before she could stop them. Her hand trembled as she paused the video. In that frozen frame, her past stared back at her, not with anger, but with a peace she had never found. Later that week, unable to stop herself, Amara walked to the community center where Michael often volunteered. She stood outside, gathering courage. Finally, she stepped in. Michael was helping children assemble solar kits. His face lit up when he laughed, the kind of happiness that comes from healing, not from pretending. He noticed her. Amara, their eyes met. There was a long pause. She took a step forward. "Michael," she said softly, "can we talk?" He stood still, searching her face, not with anger, but with the calm of someone who had long since let go. "I don't blame you," he said gently, "but I've moved on. Zara, she's doing great now, and I don't want to open old wounds." Her voice cracked. Can I just see her once? Michael hesitated, then shook his head slowly. She doesn't talk about you anymore. She's healing too. Amara nodded, swallowing the pain. She turned, walking away slowly, shoulders heavy, not from rejection, but from realization. As she disappeared down the hallway, a soft voiceover echoed. Some losses can't be undone. Some choices echo forever. Michael turned back to the children. The schoolyard buzzed with laughter and chatter, but Zara sat alone on the farthest bench, her tiny hands folded in her lap, eyes distant. Children played with skipping ropes, traded stickers and shared stories about their moms. But Zara said nothing. Her teacher, Ms. Layla, watched quietly from a distance, heart aching for the little girl who had grown quieter since her mother left. Inside the classroom during art time, while other kids drew flowers and sunshine, Zara hunched over her paper and drew two houses. One had her daddy and her, the other had her mummy, standing far away with a suitcase. Between them, a crack, a jagged line. When the teacher asked what it was, she whispered, "It's what happens when love breaks." At home, Michael tried his best. He cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, but he couldn't fill the space Zara carried in her chest. One evening after dinner, Zara coughed non-stop. Her forehead burned. She grew weak, trembling in his arms. Panic surged through Michael as he rushed her into his car, racing through red lights to the nearest hospital. Inside the emergency room, he clutched her tiny hand, his voice cracking. "Stay with me, baby. Don't sleep yet." Doctors moved quickly, IV lines, machines beeping, oxygen mask over her face. Michael waited outside, face buried in his hands, praying silently. Across the city, Amara, scrolling through her phone, paused. A friend had shared a community update online. Local hero's daughter hospitalized due to sudden illness. The picture showed Zara on a stretcher, Michael beside her, eyes wide with fear. Amara's heart stopped. She grabbed her coat, tears already blurring her vision. She ran to the street, called a taxi, and whispered through sobs, "Take me to City Hospital. Please hurry." At the hospital, she ran through corridors until she saw them. Zara, asleep in the hospital bed, pale and fragile. Michael sat beside her, holding her hand, unaware of the figure approaching behind. Amara's voice trembled. "Michael." He turned. Shock. Silence. She stepped forward, tears running freely. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. He didn't speak, just stepped aside. Amara sat beside Zara, holding her hand like a sacred thing. After a moment, Zara's eyes fluttered open. She blinked, confused, then recognized the face beside her. "Mommy?" Her voice was barely audible. Amara nodded, sobbing. "I'm here, baby. I'm here now." Zara stared at her, then turned to glance at Michael. She looked back at her mother and whispered weakly, "I missed you, but Daddy stayed." That sentence hung in the air, heavy with truth. Amara had remarried a wealthy man. Lavish dinners, designer clothes, smiling photos. On the surface, life seemed perfect. But behind closed doors, he was controlling, cold, and cruel. Her freedom shrank daily under his harsh rules and silent punishments. One stormy night, with trembling hands and a bruised heart, she slipped out of the mansion and into the rain, clutching nothing but regret. Soaked and breathless, she stood before the door she once walked away from. She knocked. The door creaked open. Michael stood there, stunned. Years had passed, but pain rushed back.